So back in the first lockdown, I got incredibly bored and I decided to try and play a large variety of different kinds of games. So racing games were things that I hadn't really been interested in. Like, I used to play them when I was like 12. Obviously, as a kid, I grew up playing a lot of like Need for Speed back on the PlayStation 2, but I felt like as I grew up, it was something that I took a lot less interest in. So I played Forza Horizon 4 around a year ago. I really did have a great time with it, but I probably only spent about 30 to 40 hours on it until I inevitably got bored and moved on to something else. Now, this is something that's good to talk about because I'm not interested in cars, like, at all. So for 5 years I was driving a 1999 Ford Fiesta because realistically that's all I wanted. So the idea of this kind of game for me, it's got nothing to do with the actual cars themselves, but more the idealism of the racing that you can do and how the world is going to be set. So just in case you've never played a Forza Horizon game before, it's essentially like an MMO of the racing world. So with this iteration of the game, it's set in Mexico, and I can tell you that honestly it's one of the most beautiful games that I've ever seen in my life. The world is so big and all of it is so varied. There's different types of races, there's different track terrains, and for some reason there are even ridiculous mountains that you can race up and down. This is one of the things that have heavily attracted me towards this game. When I saw the release of Forza Horizon 5, I was extremely excited. I didn't really feel like there was much advertising for it to start with, until it actually came out anyway. But this was really weird, because usually when a game launches, they try and hype it up at least a little bit. But then this could also be due to the fact that I don't really consume any racing content whatsoever, so maybe it just wasn't targeted towards me. But let me know in the comments down below if you did see a lot of advertising for this game before the launch. The biggest thing that I enjoyed was the fact that this game was included in Game Pass for both Xbox and PC. This means that I was able to play it from launch and didn't have to pay a penny, and also if you have Game Pass, you can do exactly the same. They did release this thing where if you really wanted the game early, you could buy the Premium Pass. So this was around £40 in the UK, $35.99 if you had the Xbox Game Pass, because obviously you get 20% off. But all this really did was give you the Season Pass DLC, but it gave you early access to the game as well. This is something that I did buy, but I didn't buy until after release. I wasn't intending to buy it in all honesty, but because of how much fun I was having playing the game, I thought it would most likely be a worthwhile purchase, and to be honest, I was right. Now, let's just jump into the game. The tutorial itself is incredibly long, but it is great. They take you through an array of events and give you a couple of cars to try out. I think that the reason they've done this is so that you can have a sneak preview of all the different events that you're going to have to partake in throughout the rest of the game. There's a few major differences between this iteration and the previous one, but one of the biggest ones that I noticed was the lack of changing weather in free roam. Now, I'm going to be honest, from my point of view, this is a very welcomed change. Horizon 4 did a lot of things really well, but one of the things that did seem to irritate me an awful lot was just the constant fluctuation of the weather. When all I wanted to do was go driving around, cruising, and it just constantly rained, or it snowed, and you were just going everywhere. I understand that it was set in the UK, but it still was a bit irritating. They have, however, kept the specific races do have specific weather conditions, so it really isn't the worst thing. It just means that you can keep doing what you need to do in free roam, and then you have to go a little bit harder during the events. So it can be a bit harder to get used to it, but in all honesty, I think it's much better this way. So the map itself is massive. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I haven't really got all the way through the game myself yet. But from what I've seen from other videos and from photos online, it does get to a point where most of the map just seems to be filled with events. So the actual view of the game, it is incredible. They've added so much detail into the game that it just looks brilliant, even on the base Xbox One. For the most part, I was playing this game on PC, but you were seeing some of the footage that my internet kind of just kept breaking. So that meant while my PC was in repair, I did have to play for a week or two on my Xbox, and to be honest, it still looked great, just not quite up to the same scratch as the PC. Now, I don't really want to just sit here and compare this game to its predecessor, mainly because this could be someone's first entry into the Forza Horizon series. But there is something that they've done from the last which is incredibly surreal. So the lighting and the sound within this game is absolutely insane. After a few months since the launch of Horizon 4, the developers started to add a lot of things into the game. This was stuff like DLC or special weekly events. This normally came with new cars and all that other stuff that comes with it. Now, a lot of these things that they added to Forza Horizon 4 have been ported over to the new game. I assume this is just to save time on them developing it, but in all honesty, I'm not really sure. But with it came all the different sounds. Every single car sounds unique. This is something that honestly is just outstanding. The lighting seems to have had some sort of drastic improvement from the last game too, and to be honest, there aren't many sections of the game where it's just like dark and dingy. Even when you're going through tunnels, it looks as realistic as it would in real life, which honestly is just mind-blowing. Now that brings us on to one of the biggest parts of this game, right? And that's the cars. So essentially this is going to be the biggest selling point, right? Because who wants to play a car game that doesn't have any cars? Well, Horizon 5 is probably going to be the best bet for you. They have a large variety of cars within this game, and it just seems to be a little bit overwhelming at times. Most drivers will do their hardest and they'll just try and find a copy of their own car in the game, but obviously as we don't all drive sports cars, sometimes we have to improvise. But with that being said, there are a lot of cars in this game that you wouldn't really classify as a sports car. Like some, in all honesty, probably shouldn't be driven at all. Like there's a big Jeep, it's like from 1975 or something like that, it's ridiculous. But in this game there's so many customization options for the cars. They've added a lot of new stuff that hasn't really been seen before in the series. A lot of the stuff is something like extra customization of the license plate, different variations of the rims on the cars, and all of that sort of weird, tiny stuff. One thing that I do really like about this game though is the car auction house. So this is a feature that was in the last game, but I felt like it wasn't really prominent, and to be honest, it didn't really work that well for me. But then again, I could have just been really bad at it, so I don't really know. This time around, it seemed that each auction lasts probably around 1 to 2 minutes, and whilst it works in this game, it seems like you actually need to be in like the right place at the right time to get the car that you actually want. So you can either buy a car outright for a larger sum of money, or you place one bid and then you just hope to the Lord above that no one can jump in after you, because it's a lot harder to manage than you would think. Maybe this is mainly because I was doing it around launch day, or that there is some stuff they're planning to fix within the system, but the general idea of it is really fun. I just had a bit of trouble with it myself. Let me know down below in the comments if you've had any form of issues with the auction side of things, or if you're a big fan of it within this game. Now the houses are one of the things that, I'm going to be completely honest, I don't really understand. I don't see the point in the houses at all, and that might be because I don't really care for the fast travel aspect of the game, or I might truly not understand the reasons behind why you would use them or why we need them. But if you could justify it for me, then please let me know, because honestly, I just don't get it. Now one of the things that this game does great is the way that it works its online features. So a lot of the online features I find are a little bit weird. One of the most surprising ones for me was the fact that I ended up playing a Battle Royale mode. So if you haven't played this yet, I would highly recommend it solely for how weird it is and how interesting it is. I'm not saying it's good, but it's also not bad. It's in like this weird middle ground that in all honesty I haven't managed to get my head around yet. Like, I love it, but I'm also incredibly confused by it. And then in the normal free roam, you've got Convoys. This is where you can invite your friends into the world, you can drive around together and compete in races. I think this is really nice because you guys can just roam around, do car meets and all the other weird things that they've added into the game, like using it to make photos. They've added a lot of new effects in the photo mode in this game, and honestly, a lot of the times you can just make some incredible looking photos just by using the in-game photo mode. I've had a few times when people have drove past driving like really incredible cars, and I've just taken a quick photo to send to my friends. They've done quite a bit on the multiplayer, so the main options for the normal game are co-op and PvP. I've only really tried the co-op, not so much the PvP, because in all honesty I'm not that great at the game, but it's still nice to know that it's there, and in a game as beautiful as Forza, it plays just incredibly. Now one of the big things that I haven't mentioned yet is the seasons. So they have a season pass. It's not quite the same as games like Fortnite and Call of Duty because it's not a paid pass, but it works in a way that they basically give you certain tasks to complete within a time period, and when you get enough points from doing these tasks, they give you things for free. These are usually cars. I'm not entirely sure if they give you anything else, but they're giving you cool cars for basically just doing challenges, which is pretty cool. And they also add like these multiplayer playlists, things like King of the Hill and some sort of like Burnout style matches like Infection, which are pretty cool. and it's a nice way to sort of mix up the gameplay, and you're not just going to end up stuck in that ridiculous driving loop. Now, I don't really think that this is going to be my game of the year or anything, but in all honesty, I do think it's coming very close. The game plays incredibly, even on the base Xbox One. Like, I managed to find a few bugs, but most of them were just server-side issues. But in all honesty, I'm going to put that down to it being a brand new game, and at the minute, everything that's launching seems to have a lot of issues. But on the upside, at least it's not as bad as the Cyberpunk situation. But if you've enjoyed the video, if there's anything that I've missed, just let me know down below in the comments. Remember to like the video if you've enjoyed it, dislike it if you haven't, and subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you next time.